A warm good morning to one and all present. On behalf of Dr. MSET, we would like to welcome Mr. Shantosh, Senior Manager, Hydec India Private Limited. He is interested to impart training on various fields of automation technologies. He have vast work experience in various companies like Kisloka Electric Company, Techmic Automation, Citec Engineering PVT Limited, Chartered Semiconductors, Bosch Rexroth India Private Limited, etc. He is a Bosch Rexroth AG certified trainer for continuous control hydraulics, pneumatics, tronics, digital hydraulics, mobile hydraulics, and Industry 4.0. He is a key personnel for digital hydraulics and proportional hydraulics in India. We are happy to have you as a speaker on the title Emerging Trends in Automation Technology, sir. We once again welcome you, sir, to share your valuable experience. Sir, kindly take over the session. Thank you. Santosh, sir, sir, you can take over the session, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. So good morning, everyone. I hope my voice is audible to all. First of all, I would like to thank MCET and the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering for providing us this particular opportunity to deliver a talk on emerging trends in automation technologies. So, and I hope in this ongoing pandemic, everybody are doing safe and your families are also doing good. So with this, I will start my topic. But before I start a topic, especially in the education areas, HIDAC is a pretty new name. But in industries, this is in existence since the last century, I guess. Ma'am, somebody can confirm me that whether my voice is audible to all?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So basically, this company HIDAC, okay. So basically, the company HIDAC, we are basically when we started as a hydraulic manufacturer. So we used to manufacture a lot of hydraulic components. So even this name HIDAC has been derived from a component which we used to manufacture in the early days, which is a hydraulic accumulator. So it's a sort of energy storage device in the field of hydraulics. So even the logo has been picked up from the graphical symbol of the same, and HYDAC represents as hydraulic accumulator. So that's where it started. And over a period of time, we started developing various other components also, which caters to the hydraulics area. And since the growth of automation has increased, we also contributed a lot by manufacturing a lot of sensors, process related sensors, and especially in the field of fluid contamination. So HYDAC is a company which is still the world leaders in filtration and fluid technologies. But nevertheless, we are also into a lot of sensors and IoT related products. So which is the hottest topic or the current topic which everybody is interested in industry by incorporating most of the things. So just to give you a background, this HYDAC group was founded way back in 1963, but even prior to this, we were part of a bigger company called Rexroth. So within Rexroth, there was another group of company which was called as HYDAC earlier by 1963, and only by around 1993, when Bosch expressed their views to take over Rexroth, Hydac didn't merge and we became an independent company and we started manufacturing components equivalent to all other uh, companies who are into this particular area. So we have got a dedicated R&D center in Germany also, which is doing a lot of work on Internet of Things, especially when it comes to industry, we call it as Industry 4.0. So we are doing a lot of research and developments in this particular area. We have got a lot of products, very innovative sensors. So we are day to day, we are growing in this particular area. So we have got around 30 manufacturing plants across the world, and out of which 5 manufacturing plants are based out of India. So Hydac again, it's not a single company, it's a group of companies which caters to a lot of different um, products or technologies. So what do we do exactly? We provide components for the original equipment manufacturers who tend to build their own machineries which will be supplied to the end users. So we supply components to them. So whether it's hydraulic components or whether it's sensors or whether it's data acquisition systems or whether it's something related to Industry 4.0. So we supply all different sort of components to them so that they can build their own customized machines. Apart from that, we also supply systems. So if it's a huge machine where a lot of mechanical, electrical, electronic aspects are involved, a few of the things we build it out for them. So which means we engineer it, we design it, we select the components, we build the system, we test it, and then we prove it on their missions. So apart from that, our major one of the biggest wing is fluid engineering and services. So we are, as I told, we are world leaders in fluid engineering, whether it comes to contaminations or whether it comes to a different areas when it is related to oil contamination and everything. We cater to all these particular components. So where we are existent, we are predominantly existent in almost every sectors of the industry. I'll not be going into detail of all these things. So in any industry, whether it's a manufacturer, user, so wherever automation is there, we have an existence in all the industrial sectors and segments. But apart from that, we also consider training and services as our one of the major product, because unless and until we train our customers, so they'll not be efficiently using our products. So we consider training as one of our prime product, and also at the same time after sales support. So the service part also we are predominantly supporting all our customers. So due in this particular training front itself, we came up with the initiative that not only training the industrial professional who are using our products, but at the same time, it's our social responsibility to train the future engineers or the future employees of big companies. So they should be aware of this instead of going without any knowledge to the industry. So we also cater to education institutions and universities, where we have got a lot of training systems which has been developed in various fields of automation technology. And very proud to say that we are one of the manufacturer who has automated or completely converted an engineering college laboratories into Industry 4.0 platform. So this is already done in one place, and very shortly, probably in another couple of months, the same infrastructure also we are building up in Dr. Mahalingam College of Engineering and Technology also. So as I told, we have got 5 manufacturing plants. So out of which two of them are based in Maharashtra, that is in Mumbai, and we have got one manufacturing plant in Bangalore, which is manufacturing a particular component alone, plus two more uh, plants we are having it in Coimbatore. So one plant is completely functional. The other plant was supposed to be inaugurated by mid of 2020, but due to the ongoing pandemic, we have slightly delayed it. Probably by the fourth quarter of 2020, this plant will be inaugurated, which is a biggest plant for HIDAC in India. So I request everybody to please mute their mics. So HIDAC Academy, when we say, here we are catering to various training aspects, whether it is for industries and also for the engineering colleges and universities. So we have come up with some very unique concepts where uh, the basic technologies are at most required, but at the same time, these basic technologies should be scalable to the present generation technology, which is Industry 4.0. So we have come up with training systems for Industry 4.0. At the same time, we are also converting the conventional training systems to Industry 4.0 as well. So now let us get along with our topic. So today's topic is emerging trends in automation technologies. So the word automation is a very has got a huge sub branches under it. So what is basically automation? If I have to very simply tell this particular very simplified way, so basically industrial automation is the use of control systems. So when I say control systems, this can be a lot of other components which caters to the automation industry. Uh, just for examples, like a computer or a robot or an IT platform and various other technologies which actually do the work. So when I say do the work in the sense, it can be something like your hydraulics or your pneumatics or your electrical actuators, which can be your motors or linear motors, solenoids, and all these things. So everything put together, handling different processes of and machinery in an industry, which is a very crude way to say that to replace human being. But uh, I would like to slightly change this definition by saying that to assist human beings so that we don't have to work in harsh environmental conditions, but we are safe and we are can do much better jobs in the industries. So basically, it's all use of control systems with various technologies to concentrate and doing a single defined process. So this industrial automation, when we talk, it's also referred as the second step beyond mechanization. So we have been talking the emerging trend which is there in the automation field today is Industry 4.0. So when we are saying this as 4.0 trend, then there should be Industry 1, 2, and 3. So when compared to that, this particular industrial automation lies in the second after mechanization. So basically, this is a simple block diagram where when I talk about control system, it can comprise of both hardware and software. Hardware is actually doing the job, and in the back end, software is assisting these hardwares on what to do, when to do, how to do. So these all control systems are put on together, combined and put on together onto a machine to do a certain task, which is within a factory or it can be within a small workshop or anything. So a mission with control system in which different technologies are combined together to do a particular task, we can call this as an automation. So there are different technologies which are contributing to industrial automation. So it's not that Industry 4.0 is the present trend and that is the only one which is ruling the automation industry. There are various different technologies which are contributing to industrial automation, out of which very few I have listed here. One is hydraulics, because our company manufactures that and need to mention it. And at the same time, this is one of the technology which is used predominantly in engineering companies. So hydraulics, then we have got in the same lines, we have got pneumatics, which is again some dedicated applications can be done only through pneumatics. So there again, we need this particular technology. And finally, electric drives and controls. So it can be one or two of these technologies combined together, which creates an industrial automation, but or it can be all the things put together onto a single machine where um, a superior control could be something which is shown here, a programmable logic controller or a SCADA, and then which can further control the hydraulics or pneumatics. So everything put together caters to a bigger role which is called as industrial automation. But again, when we talk about some basic things like hydraulic, pneumatic, or electric drives and controls, this has evolved over a period of time. So, to be very frank, hydraulics and pneumatics all started with a person called as Blaise Pascal, who came up with the Pascal's law way back in 17th century. But even after that, there was no practical use of it. So almost after a century only, the Pascal's law was put into a real application where I could use it to do something. So that is where it started, and hydraulics is almost now uh, close to a couple of centuries old. So saying that, so these technologies also has evolved a long way. So since the inception, with some basic functionality, and till today's hydraulics, pneumatics, or drives and controls. So these have changed a lot and evolved a lot. And these technologies are continuing to evolve because of Industry 4.0 in the present generation. So just to give you an example, I have just taken one example here. So in the starting, since the inception of a technology like hydraulics, it all started with something called as manual hydraulics. So even today, if we go to some shopping malls or wherever you have this multi-story parking, so you go and park a car and the operator pulls a lever or something, so and which your car can be lifted up. So whichever is operated by hand, so such kind of hydraulics were called as manual hydraulics, and this is there in existence since 1.5 centuries ago. So where it started doing the work where people used to just operate a lever and we could lift a huge object. So over a period of time, there was introduction of electrical technology where people started using electrical technology for operating these valves instead of having a manual lever. So earlier it was done by hand. Now it used to be done by some electrical technology like solenoids. So instead of manually pulling a lever and pushing a component internally or something, so we started using solenoids where we could power the solenoid electrically, and solenoid used to convert this electrical power into a linear motion and do the work for us. So by this is the stage where we could do a sequential process by having a relay logic or control circuits or logical circuits. And using this, we could wire up everything, and just by press of a button, I could run a sequence of operation on my machine. So then with this, again, advancements came like, why don't I use electronically controlled hydraulics? So earlier we used to use a switching signal, and with the new trend, we started using analog signals, PWM signals, in order to control my solenoid in a much accurate, faster, and stepless way, and we could achieve much more wonders with hydraulics. So, but however, all these technologies were a bit slower in operation. So at the same time, aviation industry was booming. So there we needed hydraulic actuations which could be very, very fast. So that came up with servo hydraulics. So where a simple hydraulic valve or some sort of actuator which can operate 400 cycles per second. So a mechanical component reciprocating or oscillating at a frequency of 400 hertz is very, very fast. It's considered to be very fast. So we started using servo hydraulics. And over a period of time, these were all, till servo hydraulics, it was all referred as analog controls, where in order to do any adjustments on my amplifier or electronics, we used to use small resistors, potentiometers, and all these things in order to fine tune my control. So then the next biggest revolution, which was digital hydraulics. So where everything was microprocessor, microcontroller based, where at any given point of time, if I have to fine tune my hydraulics, I could take my laptop, connect a wire to it, and then I could change the program or I can parameterize in my um, computer itself. So this gave a biggest advantage for the industry because in industries, time is money. So if there is a problem in any one of the electronic card or something, so we had to replace the card at the same time, we had to completely fine tune it. Whereas with the introduction of digital hydraulics, so whatever I could do the parameterization or programming on my computer, I could save it easily. So even a replacement is just replace the electronic card, connect your cable and download the program, done. So this became one of the most preferred technologies again in the industries. And with present generation, we are all talking about something called as Industry 4.0. So the same thing with some tweaking. So we call it as connected hydraulics. So where uh, the valves or the components of the hydraulic system can exchange information between themselves as well as the humans. So we are bringing a layer of IT so that the valves can become more decentralized, intelligence can be built and it can exchange informations. So in the same lines, pneumatics also has grown in the same path. And even if you recall electrical controls like programmable logic controllers, so electrical programmable logic controllers came into the existence only when microprocessors or microcontrollers were introduced. This was in the late 70s or early 80s, 1980s. So there what happened was when people started coming up with industrial grade microcontrollers, which we in the present day we call it as programmable logic controllers. So there uh, every manufacturer had his own methodology of programming the PLC. So they used to give a dedicated handheld device, again a mini computer you can say, where only with that controller I used to program it. So it was all proprietary. So if I go with Siemens today, so tomorrow also I need to have a Siemens programmer and other things. So this was all driven by companies and being monopolies. So over a period of time, this scenario changed in PLCs where a centralized or a common guidelines were brought in, which is now called as IEC 61131, which said that any PLC manufacturer has to cater to these standard programming languages. So people started using a standard programming languages like structured text or ladder logic or continuous function chart and various such kind of things there. So PLCs in the present generation, when we are talking about connected hydraulics, we are talking of programmable logic controllers which can be programmed in any of the languages. It can be programmed in C, C++, Java, LabVIEW, and all these things. At the same time, it can also communicate on a higher level programming languages. So it will not be mandatory in the future that you need to learn PLC program or structured text program to program a PLC. But if you're good with your IT skills like Java, C++, then even PLC is within your reach. So every technology has been growing since the inception. Now, this is a very interesting topic where when we take different sort of industries, so the present myth is that hydraulics is very old, it's sluggish, so we don't use it anymore, or pneumatics is it can be replaced by electrical, but every technology has got its salient features. So due to which almost every industry has got an existence of various different technologies. So this particular chart has been drawn considering the Indian market. So in India, we have got different industrial sectors like steel, cement, automotive, railways, mining, and so on. So in each of these particular sectors or segments, we use hydraulic, pneumatic, sensors, PLC, servo drives, variable frequency drives, which all comes under electric drives and controls, and even robotics. So if you see this particular graph, we have got the requirement of almost every technology in every industry. However, we are a bit still resistant or hesitant, or due to some other reasons, we are not able to incorporate the latest of technologies. Though we are quite knowledgeable in that, we are doing the job for other countries, but when it comes to the implementations in our own country, it's a bit difficult. The reason, one of the prime reason, is the initial costs. So even robotics, it's being so common nowadays, but though in industry, if I see here, robotics is predominantly, you can see it is used in automotive and machine tools. But apart from that, rest of all the areas we are still lacking. So to summarize this particular slide, I would say that we are still 80 to 90%, we are still with the conventional automation. We are not yet geared up for industry 4.0, but there is a huge amount of scope, and this scope will be in a huge demand in the next couple of years. It's not very far away where we would have robotics, connected hydraulics, everything on the platform in a larger scale here. But at the same time, whether we take hydraulics or pneumatics or electric drives and controls, so the share of software is increasing day by day. So this uh, slide maybe is a bit confusing, but this doesn't mean that the requirement of mechanics or electronics is going down, but the importance of software is growing. So the mechanicals or electrical electronics would have a critical role to play, but at the same time, these things has to become more intelligent, and that is done by the integration of software. So the requirement, the skill set requirement in the future is uh, electrical engineer may not be sufficient, but electrical engineer with some programming skills or additional software skills would be an basic requirement in the future. And that is quite evident because this particular FDP is also on IoT, which is the future trend and technology itself. So how is this IoT growing into such a drastic way? So this is some of the statistics which we are trying to study here. So way back in 1995, there were around 40 million connected people across the globe. So internet was introduced somewhere in the early 70s and 80s. So since then, people started connecting to each other through some communications via email or communications on the social networking platforms. So in 1995, there were around 40 million connected people across the globe. And this number is now 7 billion connected people. So we have got more number of social networking platforms, more number of means of communication, more number of informations being exchanged. So we have got around 7 billion connected people. So this is on the social side where we started connecting. But at the same time, when I look at devices, so in 1995, there were around 6 million computers which were there on the internet, which had an access to data, which could exchange information. It was only computers. Whereas by 2020, this number is going to be drastically high, almost up to 50 billion connected things. So this is only because of Internet of Things. So way back in 1995 and all, when it all started, so earlier it was only computers, then we came up with a lot of components or products which were able to communicate to the internet and exchange informations. So just to name few, your smartphones, it's all connected to the internet where you can communicate to each other, you can send information to the clouds, you can retrieve information from the clouds. So all these things were becoming possible, and it is now a generalized or common utilization which everybody does now. So apart from that, we have got household appliances. So whether it's your television, refrigerator, or your CCTV camera, or we call it as IP camera nowadays, or any other things which is there at home, smart lighting, smart doors, access controls, everything has become connected now. So literally I can sit in the office and I can switch on the lights at my home. So that is also possible provided we have got a good internet infrastructure. At the same time, we have got a secured internet infrastructure. So this has been the path of our growth. So within a span of 2 decades, it has been growing some 50 to 60 folds or even 100 folds. So what is making this rapid growth? So these are some of the major contributors for all this rapid growth in the field of Internet of Things, or even the extension of it, which is Industry 4.0. Just to name few, you have very low price sensors now. So earlier days, sensors used to be very expensive because the demand was less. So demand has increased now. So manufacturing has increased. Technology has improved in such a way that you can do bulk manufacturing with your in the smallest of size. So sensors have become very cheap. So we can incorporate a lot of sensors, because automation, when we talk about, so sensors are basically referred as eye of an automation. So PLC can give some voltage to switch on something. Your hydraulic or pneumatic technology can move something, but that has to be communicated back to the PLC or the users. So that can be communicated only through incorporation of sensors. CPUs are available for cheap. So earlier days, PLC was the only method which we used in industry for automating things. Now we have got various different kinds of PLC, like a modular PLC, scalable PLC, PC based PLCs, and lot of microcontrollers or RC controllers, so which can cater to a lot of things. This so many different um, inventions or innovations has happened because PLCs are available for cheap. Just to give you an idea, like if you're a hobbyist, then you know the Arduino cost, which costs around 300 or 400 rupees, and even a powerful thing like Raspberry Pi, which also costs somewhere around 3000 rupees. So, which has got wonderful capabilities where you can do a lot of things using these kind of CPUs. Internet is available widely now. Unlike earlier, we used to talk about kbps or bits per second. So now we are all talking about gbps. So internet availability has become very, very good because of the infrastructure and accessibility of internet and reachability. The cost also has come down drastically, where we can use a lot of things where it's used to communicate. GPS has become quite popular, so where you can track your components. So irrespective of you manufacture it and you leave it to the field, so you can incorporate a GPS chip which can continuously tell you where exactly your product is. So this also is catering to Industry 4.0 and this recent developments. Storages are available for cheap. So when I say storage, it is not your local storage, but it is a cloud storage. So there are a lot of cloud storage providers who are offering a lot of secured or encrypted storage in a very, very cost effective way. Increase in use of hardware and software usability. So unlike earlier, so smartphone has become a common trend where everybody has got one or more than one smartphone. Most of us has more than one smartphones now. So the usability of it has drastically increased, and this is going to change a lot in the future again. So when we talk about PLCs, we also talk about something called as human machine interfaces. So where we can command a machine or see what is happening on the machine on a screen which is fixed onto a machine itself. So in future, if it is everything is connected on an IT platform, literally I'll be able to use a smartphone. Just go to the machine, probably scan a QR code, and your entire mission data is available on your screen, in your smartphone screen. So you can operate it from there, control it from there, get the information from there. So your future maintenance engineers tools can be something like a tab, which is already the present day reality now. So second, other big thing is data mining. So now IoT, when we are talking, IoT also has come up in a long way. One is usability, where I can sit in one place and control something. And the second level was the secured wise. And the next is exchange of information also was possible. And today we are all talking about some new things like artificial intelligence and machine learnings. So if artificial learning has to be incorporated, then you need to learn from the data. So for which to learn from the data, which is machine learning, so you need an initial lot of amount of data. So if I have to, for example, if I have to implement a sort of machine learning or artificial intelligence on a machine, so first of all, I should know that how the machine works. So I can visually see it, but for my electronic controllers to see that, it needs a lot of data from a lot of different sensors. So it would collect a lot of data from the sensors, accumulate it, and try to understand how the sensors values change when a process is happening. So it will learn the process and then optimization of the process and improving the processes artificial intelligence. So data mining is one of the prime requirement when it comes to the new generation automation, where it will be playing a very, very critical role. So other thing is performance advantages by decentralized networking. So networking is again a biggest challenge, where you've got crores or millions or billions of internet nodes. So where if it has to communicate within a a proper server, then probably we should have a lot of secure network which has to be laid down. So we are all been talking about Industry 4.0, which is the next, or this is the revolution, biggest revolution in industrial automation. At the same time, it's one of the most emerging field for Industry 4.0 or industrial automation. So if this is the fourth industrial revolution, then there should be the first three industrial revolution also. So the first industrial revolution was way back in the 17th century, where invention of steam was being utilized to convert it into do some mechanical jobs like steam engines, steam turbines, and a little bit of hydraulics was being utilized. So during that time, we used to use water as a medium to operate some sort of things. So this is referred as Industry 1.0. But believe me, there was no Industry 1.0, 2.0, or 3.0 unless or until Industry 4.0 came into existence. So when we only started thinking of the next generation of automation, then we named it as 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0. Uh, I hope my voice is audible. I request everybody to please mute their mic. So the second biggest industrial revolution was um, introduction of electricals. So electrification in case of the production industry or the automation industry took the automation industry by storm. And to be very precise, Ford was the one of the first company to incorporate electrical into their manufacturing process. So prior to electrification, way back in 1870s, they used to manufacture around 1 to 2 cars in a day. So with the introduction of electrification of their machines, they were able to produce around 10 to 12 cars in a day, which was a rapid boost and a rapid growth. So this concept became very popular and people started electrifying their whole process. The third revolution it was very in the recent, so which is digitization we call. So where we started coming up with this revolution came only because of the invention of microprocessors and microcontrollers. So we started automizing a lot of things. So a lot of components came into existence, starting from PLCs, servo drives, VFDs, SCADA systems, HMIs, robotics, and everything. So this became a huge popular thing. And since 1970s, there are more than some uh, 5 lakh companies within India which is catering into the automation areas. So this was not very old, but this was somewhere around 5 decades earlier. In 1970s, this revolution happened. But after this, um, somewhere in 2008, which during this time the smartphones had become popular, Google had become very popular, data exchange, and ease-wise everything was happening. So big industries came together and they started saying that we should bring this concept of this IoT into industry. So where we could connect missions and companies together. So on a IT infrastructure. So that is where Industry 4.0 came. As I told you, this was coined in 2008. However, this became reality since 2012. And today we are in a far, far more superior position since the inception. But believe me, till date, we are still learning and implementing new things. So, which means that this technology is not once it came and it will perish within the next 5 or 10 years. This technology will grow and evolve over a period of time. So exchange of information, exchange of data, machine to machine communications, everything started happening with this. So this has been given with different names. So especially with the European countries, they call it as Industry 4.0. Americans call it as smart automation. A few others in a generalized way, they call it as digitization. Appropriately, it is called as connected industries or IIoT, which is Industrial Internet of Things. So everybody says it's the fourth industrial revolution. Now, when I consider 2012 year, everybody said it's still Industry 4.0, revolution, fourth industrial revolution. But the biggest question was whether it's a revolution or it was a evolution. So actually, it was both. It was a business revolution. So it was a concept to sell easily. So when I could say that your machine can be switched on from your home, or you could see how many components are produced sitting at somewhere. So this was easier to sell. But at the same time, when the concepts or products comes into picture, it was an evolution, because during that time there was no clearly defined concepts, nor we had products. So this all evolved over a period of time now. So very simple definition of Industry 4.0 is people, missions, and IT systems. So here, unlike your just conventional automation or anything, it is not only the mission. So here we are talking about the missions, the IT systems, which is your software part, and human beings, people, automatically exchange information. So it is not only mission to mission communication, but mission should also communicate to human beings. Human beings, through an IT platform, they'll be communicating to the mission. So it's all communications possible. So people, missions, and IT systems automatically exchange information for manufacturing a product. Now, this exchanging of information can be within a factory alone, or it can be within a group of companies. So, for example, if Hydac has got some 30 manufacturing plants across the Asian countries, so it is not that within a plant within Coimbatore, the machine should communicate within themselves, but all these things has to communicate to all the 30 manufacturing plants across Asia. So that is the requirement. So within a factory and across multiple ICTs, so information communication technology systems within a group of companies. So it doesn't mean that Hydac will start sharing informations with Siemens or Bosch, because in the market we are all competitors. So it's all within a group of companies. So if I have to simplify this particular thing in a simpler way, it is a combination of industry and IT put together. We call it as Industry 4.0. So where it's not always IT when we talk about Industry 4.0, but there are very important aspects when it comes to the technical aspects of the industry. At the same time, a lot more requirement from the IT industries. So just to name few, when we talk about industrial missions, so our utmost priority is safety. So safety of the operator who's operating it, at the same time safety of the mission by itself. Next is time to the market. How quickly I can conceptualize a new product and how quickly I can bring it to the market. Energy efficiency is at most required, and productivity has to be improvised, quality has to be improvised, and life of the components has to increase with Industry 4.0. At the same time, when we talk about IT, we have already spoken about big data, that is your collection of data. Then networking we have spoken about, artificial intelligence and machine learning we have spoken about a bit. At the same time, it should be safe and secure. So in future, probably the competitives will not be on the price front, but it will be from the IT infrastructure safety. At the same time, cloud computing becomes very, very important. So under all these particular areas, there are few technologies which are catering to the automation industry in a drastic way, which all is part of Industry 4.0. The first thing is autonomous robots. So your robots and your control systems have become quite intelligent. Just to give you an example, in an automotive manufacturing plant, let us take Maruti Suzuki plant. So earlier days and all, we used to book a Maruti car and wait for 6 months for the delivery. But in the present generation, it is all quickly possible because if I go into the manufacturing plant of Maruti, in the manufacturing line, the first line which is getting first car which is getting manufactured is probably Ertiga, the second is Baleno, the third is Vitara Brezza. This is because your robots and processes has become smarter where the machine will identify what is the chassis which is coming and automatically it knows that whether for Baleno what should I do, for Vitara Brezza what should I do, and all these things. So these all things can now has been possible because of Industry 4.0. One more very important and critical thing is your cyber security. When you have your complete manufacturing lines, people's planning, designs, programs, everything on an IT infrastructure, your cyber security has to be highly encrypted and secured. The next biggest thing is augmented reality. So I told you a point where the future engineers toolkit would be a smartphone or a tablet. So this is an image shown here where on the behind I've got a machine here. So they we have some augmented reality apps which is customizable for different missions where I can take the tab and just hold it my camera in front of the machine. So all the mission variables, sensor data, everything would be live displayed on your screen. So in future, I may don't have to carry a multimeter or oscilloscope or pressure gauge. Everything is visualizable on a smartphone. So this is one of the biggest emerging technology which is having great scope in the future. The other thing is additive manufacturing. So this is nothing but your deposition wise creating a new product which is uh, where you can prototype new product or develop new products. So in the present generation now, when we are talking about additive manufacturing, ABB robotics has come up with metal depositions where we can create actual machine components also. So this helps us a lot in developing new prototypes, testing it in a much faster way. Big data and analytics. So whatever is the process on the machine, data has to be collected and analyzed. Cloud has become very important. So now we are not dependent much on your hard storage devices, but we are all dependent on cloud storages. Other thing is vertical and horizontal communication. As I already told, if the machines are communicating to each other within a factory, we call it as horizontal communication. When the entire factory as a whole has to communicate to your headquarters or other manufacturing plants across the globe, we call it as vertical communication. The other thing is the simpler word is simulation, but we also call this as cyber physical systems or digital clones. So any mission on the production shop floor or the factory shop floor will have a digital twin on the software also on my computer. So if I have to start manufacturing a new product, I don't have to stop my actual machine, put a new product, do a prototype and program it, nothing doing. So we could everything do it on a digital clone sitting in my office on the software. If everything is works well on the software part, the same thing a program can be dumped into the real machine and you can start producing the component. So cyber physical system, digital twin or digital clone is again at most required for bringing the product from the conceptualization stage to the market in a much more faster way. So smart factory of the future for process aid automation is these are the prime requirements by the automation implementers or the machine manufacturers or the users. So what they want is lean management, so no inventory burden, which means if I have to produce some 1,000 components in a month, I don't have to procure raw materials for 1,000 and keep it there. So I can always take the raw materials when and where required. So this platform also will be on a digital way so that once your raw material is getting empty, it will automatically place an order on the vendor and vendor will supply it. So we call it as just in concept. Even with any IT infrastructure automation, quality has to be retained, energy efficiency has to increase, and one more big point with Industry 4.0 is use of unskilled labor. So all this time, just to give you an example, on the shop floor of our industry, most of the people who are assembling components or anything, they would have qualified as ITI, and supervisors would have been qualified as diploma, and the people who are designing, planning, research and development, these are all engineers. So this trend is slightly going to change now with implementation of Industry 4.0. That is, you don't need um, a person who has done ITI to do the production. Instead, I can hire a school dropout to do that by giving him some training and some instructions in his own way, which is possible through Industry 4.0. We could use uh, uneducated uh, people also to do some skilled jobs. So in the future, ITIs may take over the role of supervisors and diploma may take over some part of design, planning, production, and all these things. And engineers will have to play a bigger role in bringing this entire eco-structure, that is where you bring IT and your automation, everything hand in hand. The other is with Industry 4.0, you'll always have an access to the real-time data. So when I go to some factories, there would be huge notice boards with lot of charts. So what exactly this chart is? So whatever production had happened yesterday, that would be put in a chart. Whatever failures due to which machine was down, that would be put on a chart. How many rejection of component, that would be put on a chart today morning. So where all related to the factory would come and discuss what went wrong yesterday and how it can be corrected today. So instead of waiting 24 hours for it, what Industry 4.0 offers is the real-time data. If your component manufacturing quality is deteriorating, it will give an immediate trigger so that you can correct yourself in the same time. So you don't have to wait for 24 hours to think of it and access about it. One piece mass production. I think this I've already explained because in the Maruti car when we used to wait earlier, because if the machines were not smarter, if I'd have tuned it to make only Maruti 800, it used to only manufacture a Maruti 800 for some 6 months. Then I used to